4:12 a.m. Local time. Strait of Hormuz, outbound lane, eastbound flow. The sea is low state, wind under 8 knots, horizon clean, visibility beyond 12 nautical miles. Commercial traffic holds the traffic separation scheme with mechanical discipline. 2 narrow lanes with a buffer that leaves almost no room for improvisation. For the watch teams tracking the corridor, the calm is not comfort. It is signal clarity. 4:14 a.m. The common operational picture stabilizes, then tightens. Multiple air tracks appear at long range and high altitude, consistent with tanker and ISR orbits. Then a second set resolves with speed profiles that do not match routine. The geometry is orderly, but it is not normal. Not random traffic, but deliberate routing. 4:16 a.m. Range 96 nautical miles, bearing 312, true from the maritime screen. The SPY array on an Aegis surface combatant holds steady returns and feeds the track file without drama. The ship does not change course. The ship does not illuminate with anything it does not need. Presence is maintained by restraint. 4:18 a.m. The strike story breaks outside the radar scope before it fully breaks inside it. Report lines confirm the United States and Israel have begun strikes on Iran, and that the campaign is expected to run for multiple days under a named operation. The watch does not repeat headlines on voice circuits. It converts them into tasking, into timing, into risk. 4:20 a.m. Inside the Gulf of Oman, where the air picture thickens. A P-8A Poseidon holds a wide maritime orbit beyond the shipping density, its surface search radar painting contacts that remain compliant and those that drift. Above, an E-2D maintains altitude and keeps the air defense plan coherent, distributing a single story across multiple receivers. 4:22 a.m. Range 62 nautical miles to the northern shore. The narrowest navigable width is not a concept here. It is measured about 18 nautical miles across at its tightest point, with shipping lanes far tighter than that. Every mile of closure compresses decision time. 4:24 a.m. The strike package is not visible to the surface watch as a formation. It is visible as absence, as disciplined emission control, as routing that avoids the obvious radar funnels. The electronic warfare team listens for changes in the spectrum. No panic, no chatter, just monitoring. The question is not whether strikes are happening. It is whether the next movement is containment or escalation. To 4:26 a.m. On the Bahrain side of the operational picture, 5th Fleet logistics nodes shift posture. Small craft traffic near fixed facilities is reduced, and the pattern of harbor movement changes in a way that suggests prior warning. The geometry of protection expands outward. 4:28 a.m. At 20 nautical miles from the outbound lane, a fast surface contact appears at the edge of clutter, then steadies into a consistent course. The track is labeled unknown, held at arm's length by sensor discipline and by doctrine. The closest point of approach is calculated, then recalculated as speed increases. 4:30 a.m., range 14 nautical miles. The contact remains outside the buffer, but it is now clearly maneuvering with awareness of the lane. The bridge receives an updated brief from the Combat Information Center. The order is brief and calm. Maintain course, tighten the screen, do not give away intent. 4:32 a.m. Inside the same air corridor is Aegis 46. A tanker maintains its orbit with clinical regularity, offload capacity intact, ready to extend legs that must not land short. It is a logistics aircraft, but in this moment it is also a clock. Fuel is time. 4:34 a.m. The first indications of retaliation begin as distant launches rather than immediate impacts. Tracks rise fast, ballistic profiles that climb out of atmosphere and turn into math. Aegis operators do not call them missiles first. They call them objects. So classification follows once kinematics stop lying. 4:36 a.m. Range 210 nautical miles to the projected mid-course gate. The Aegis combat system compresses detection to track into seconds, then shares that track where it matters. The real power is not the radar alone. It is the integration, the ability to make separated units act like one system. 4:38 a.m. Inside the network, sensor data is treated as local even when it is not. Cooperative engagement capability methods, composite tracking, high-precision queuing, engagement coordination exist for exactly this scenario. Dense traffic, limited time, high consequence, a single picture, shared without delay. 4:40 a.m. Range 9 nautical miles to the fast surface contact. The track turns 5 degrees starboard, then steadies, as if testing the response. The U.S. ship does not answer with speed. It answers with documentation. Optics on, radar disciplined, electronic support measures listening. Restraint does not mean inaction. It means control. 4:42 a.m. A second surface contact appears 3.2 nautical miles astern of the first, matching course within a degree. Two contacts create a bracket possibility. The navigation team plots CPA cones that narrow the safe space around the lane. The ship's solution is not to flee the geometry. It is to own it. 4:44 a.m. Inside the strait, commercial tankers continue moving. A corridor that carries nearly 17 million barrels per day does not pause for headlines, and that continuity becomes its own vulnerability. The military screen does not take the lane. It shields it. If you want to understand how a conflict spreads, watch the shipping lanes first, not the speeches. 4:46 a.m. Air defense circuits pass short updates. The status is not weapons-free. It is rules of engagement, identification discipline, hostile act thresholds. The absence of a shot is deliberate, not hesitant. 4:48 a.m. Range 48 nautical miles. An EA-18G Growler checks in at altitude. Not to be seen, but to shape the spectrum if shaping becomes necessary. The jamming suite is present as an option, including the next-generation jammer program designed to disrupt and degrade threat systems without kinetic exchange. 4:50 a.m. Inside the Gulf of Oman, a maritime patrol aircraft reports a surface cluster changing speed, then returning to steady. This is not a mass sortie. It is probing behavior, timed to coincide with air operations elsewhere. The tactical implication is familiar. Create ambiguity at sea while attention is drawn to the sky. 4:52 a.m. Range 7.6 nautical miles to the lead fast contact. The ship's fire control posture does not visibly change. The combat system does not need to display aggression to be ready. The captain receives updated brief, then authorizes an aviation option without theatrics. 4:54 a.m. A helicopter lifts from the deck in controlled profile, low and steady. We're running a short arc to extend the ship's eyes. No warning shots, no aggressive turns, a simple expansion of awareness. 4:56 a.m. Bearing 028 true, range 6.1 nautical miles. The lead fast contact holds course, then reduces speed slightly, as if acknowledging the helicopter's presence. Not retreat, but recalibration. The message is not in words. It is in rate of closure. 4:58 a.m. The ballistic tracks in the north resolve into a set that appears aimed toward regional nodes, including areas around Bahrain. Reuters reporting later confirms a missile attack on the U.S. Fifth Fleet Service Center in Bahrain as part of the retaliation story. The Maritime Watch does not wait for confirmation to adjust posture. It adjusts on probability. 5 a.m. Range 5.4 nautical miles. The two surface contacts separate laterally by 0.8 nautical miles, widening their bracket. The U.S. ship holds its lane-adjacent track and keeps the closest point of approach above a hard minimum. This is geometry as doctrine. 5:02 a.m. Inside the electronic picture, emissions begin to change. A new radar line appears briefly, then disappears, as if someone is testing whether the U.S. ship will respond by lighting up. The response is measured. No matching flare, no unnecessary transmission. Silence, when chosen, is tactical. 5:04 a.m. The helicopter reports visually. Two fast craft, low profile, operating just outside the densest commercial flow. No overt weapons manned. The report does not clear the ambiguity. It documents it. 5:06 a.m. Range 4.8 nautical miles. The Aegis track file marks both contacts with steady confidence. The ship's combat team calculates intercept geometry for a non-kinetic outcome. Stay predictable. Keep separation. Do not surrender maneuver space. The most important action is what is not done. 5:08 a.m. The regional air picture remains active. Strike and counter-strike cycles overlapping in time. BBC reporting emphasizes the diplomatic context leading into the strikes, talks, deadlines, the sense of urgency used to justify action. The Maritime Watch reads it only as indicator. This will not be a short night. At this point, the only real question is whether the sea picture becomes a distraction or a second front. 5:10 a.m. Range 4.2 nautical miles. The lead contact turns port by 8 degrees. The trailing contact does not mirror immediately, then follows with a smaller correction, a maintaining separation. It is coordinated movement, but it stops short of an intercept. 5:12 a.m. Inside the strait, the traffic separation scheme becomes a physical constraint again. Two inbound/outbound lanes, roughly 1.7 nautical miles wide each, separated by another 1.7 nautical miles of buffer. There is space outside it, but not enough for sudden games at speed. 5:14 a.m. Range 3.9 nautical miles. The U.S. ship shifts its own course by 3 degrees, a correction small enough to appear navigational, large enough to keep CPA safe. The maneuver is logged, time-stamped, and treated as evidence of control rather than reaction. 5:16 a.m. A new air track descends toward the Iranian coastline, likely ISR repositioning to watch launch sites and coastal batteries. The maritime patrol picture expands to include likely threat arcs for anti-ship missiles, not because a shot is expected, but because planning without them would be negligent. 5:18 a.m. The fast contacts reduce speed again. Their bracket collapses into a looser formation, suggesting the probing phase has reached its limit without provoking an overreaction. The U.S. ship does not chase. It keeps to mission geometry. Protect the corridor. Keep the picture stable. 5:20 a.m. Range 6.5 nautical miles. Separation increases, slowly and unmistakably. The helicopter remains overhead long enough to confirm the withdrawal pattern, so then returns toward the ship along a shallow approach that keeps eyes on the contacts until the last practical moment. 5:22 a.m. In the wider theater, reports indicate additional impacts and responses across the Gulf. Loud booms are reported in the UAE and elsewhere, consistent with air defense activity and inbound threats. The Maritime Watch treats each report as a potential cue to scan a new bearing. 5:24 a.m. The ship's combat system does not celebrate the increased range. Aegis updates the track quality, logs emissions, and preserves the chain of observation. The point is not to win a moment. It is to build an intelligence record. 5:26 a.m. Range 11 nautical miles. The fast contacts now sit outside immediate intercept geometry. Still present. Still being watched, but no longer dictating the near-field problem. Commercial traffic continues to flow through a corridor that cannot afford to close. 5:28 a.m. Inside the networked picture, the most important output is stability. Composite tracks remain aligned, queuing remains precise, and shared awareness prevents duplication of effort. A distributed force looks calm because it has already done the hard work of integration. If you want a measure of capability, do not watch the weapon. Watch how little a professional crew has to say to stay coordinated. 5:30 a.m. Range 14 nautical miles. The captain receives a final update for this phase. Surface probing has eased. An air defense posture remains heightened, and the strategic picture is still volatile. Orders remain brief. Maintain course. Maintain coverage. Maintain documentation. 5:32 a.m. The corridor's value is restated without speeches. Nearly 17 million barrels per day move through this choke point under routine assumptions, and those assumptions are now being tested. The military response is not to seize control loudly. It is to prevent disruption quietly. 5:34 a.m. Range 18 nautical miles. The fast contacts fade into the larger clutter of compliant traffic and coastal background. They are not lost. They are simply no longer central. That distinction matters. 5:36 a.m. The ship widens separation from the highest risk geometry, increasing distance from the lane edge and recentering its posture to cover more than one problem at once. In the log, this looks like routine navigation. In doctrine, it is repositioning. 5:38 a.m. Above, the tanker orbit continues. With the ISR orbit continues, the air defense orbit continues. The strikes ashore may dominate headlines, but at sea, the tempo is measured in minutes and nautical miles, not statements. The restraint remains intentional. 5:40 a.m. Range 22 nautical miles. The de-escalation is incremental, confirmed by sensors rather than by assumptions. The ship reduces visible posture without reducing awareness, an important difference. Nothing in the system suggests the night is over. It suggests only that this specific geometry has been stabilized. 5:42 a.m. The final product of the encounter is not a shot and not a chase. It is a file. Timestamps, bearings, ranges, emissions, CPA calculations, and the disciplined record of what was not done. This is how modern forces project control without forcing a collision. 5:44 a.m. Range 27 nautical miles. The sea lane holds. The air picture remains active. The intelligence value accumulates quietly, minute by minute, because the most durable advantage is not aggression. It is the ability to stay precise under pressure and to let discipline do the work that force would only complicate.